Welcome to Soul, Light, and Body. How are you guys doing today? I hope you're doing well. I hope you continue to do your journaling. I hope you continue to do your grounding. I hope you continue to pause in and checking in with yourself because, many times we're really not doing that. And this evening, we got such an interesting topic because this month is Pancreatic Awareness Month. And we just want to focus a little bit to help people to understand more about this topic and how you can take care of yourself, how you can able to understand the symptoms, the causes, and how you can able to know if one of your family members are suffering with pancreatic cancer. And this is a very aggressive form of cancer. And many times we're having symptoms and we're really not paying attention to our bodies because our bodies teach us a lot of stuff. But many times we're not paying attention. For instance, we have learned in IAN, myself and Joan, that when we go to use the toilet, we need to always look back at our stool because the stool tells us a lot of stuff, what's happening in the internal. So if you're listening to this evening, make it a habit. When you go to use the toilet, always look back to see the color of your urine and always see the color of your stool because it's going to tell you a lot of information that you need to know. Also, excuse me, also, you need to pay attention to your skin color. If your skin color start to change, you see it looking yellowish like jaundice, you got to pay attention to that. Also, if you start to lose weight rapidly, you got to pay attention to that. Because all these things are trying to inform us. The body have no other way than telling us these information and signals that something is wrong inside. So that is why we need not to omit these things and pay attention what is exactly happening with us. And we need to consult a doctor to know exactly what's going on. And even so, if you go to one doctor, because this is a form of cancer, it's hard to detect. It's really, really hard to detect. So sometimes you need a second opinion. You need to go and get a second opinion because sometimes you go to one doctor and he may say that he doesn't see anything wrong or she doesn't see anything wrong, but you're still feeling that way. So you need to get a second opinion to see exactly what's happening with you. And this evening, we got such a beautiful returning guest on our podcast. And Teona is going to help us to understand because she's a pancreatic cancer survivor. And she's going to able us to walk us through and help us to understand more about this topic. What a better person to explain this topic in depth, who had the experience of walking through with that form of cancer. And we're going to be able to discuss the symptoms, the treatment, the second opinion, what we should really do, prevention, the diagnosis. We're going to be able to walk through all of these tonight for you. It's all about enriching you and empowering you with information so you can able to empower yourself in times of when you're not feeling well, that you could say, you know what, I really need to get myself checked out because I'm not feeling well. Or if, as I said before, if you see your stool change in color, you can able to say, you know what, something is wrong with my body. I really need to get myself checked out. But I'm not going to take up much of the time because I really want Teona to help us to understand this topic on a very deep level. So if you haven't to subscribe yet to Soul, Light, and Body, we encourage you to subscribe because we always got some fabulous topics to enrich you, the audience, and also enrichment of mind, body, and soul. That's our next platform. You can also be a part of that. That's every Sunday from 7 to 9 p.m. And it's all about empowering you. This space is to empower you and to help you as an individual to be more aware of yourself. So I'll now hand the mic over to a lady, June Williams. Take the mic. Teona, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me here again. I'm new to the show. I came on the other night to your Sunday night podcast, and from the minute that you sent me a request to come on the show, I was like, "This is something that I want to do." Empowerment of other people is one of the things that I genuinely believe. I survived what is the third deadliest cancer in the world, and I often think there's a reason why I survived it. And being able to be on a platform like this definitely aligns with that. So thank you both, Joan and Karen, for having me here. I'm really excited. And I know we don't have a whole lot of time, so I want to dive right in and just start talking.
Yeah. First of all, welcome. Thank you for saying yes. And it's truly amazing to have you here with us. So we're not going to take up much time. I'm Joan Williams, holistic health and wellness coach. We're going to dive right in and talk about the awareness. Thank you for choosing to kick off the month of November, bringing the awareness to us all and to understand deeper what we should look for, the second opinions, treatment, and every single thing. So we're going to dive right in. The mic is over to you. Thanks for being here.
So again, thank you, because this lines up so perfectly. It's November awareness. This month, everything that you're going to see in the media about pancreatic cancer is really with one goal in mind. It is to bring awareness to this particular cancer that is, like you already mentioned, it's aggressive, it's very deadly. It has one of the lowest survival rates of all of the top cancers. So today in 2024, the survival rate, the 5-year survival rate, is monumentally better than what it was when I got diagnosed in 2016, because there's been so much advancement and improvement that's been made just simply by creating awareness. And one of the interesting things about cancer treatment and research is the more people are aware, the more people are willing to fund the research for this particular kind of cancer, for any kind of cancer. So I'll start a little bit by telling you a little bit about my cancer diagnosis and when I was actually diagnosed. It was April 1st of 2016. It was April Fool's Day. And I always say this. I know my family, if they listen to my interviews, they're like, okay, we know it wasn't funny, Mom. Like, it was a horrible joke. It was a horrible, horrible, horrible April Fool's Day. And sadly enough, it was not a joke. I really did truly have pancreatic cancer. And when I got that first call from a doctor on Friday, April 1st of 2016, it was spring break. I thought I was getting ready to go do something fun for spring break, and all of my fun and games came to an abrupt halt right around 10:30 in the morning when a doctor called me, and a doctor that was not my primary care. I had a stomach ache, which is one of the symptoms that I'd had for an ongoing period of time. And I'm not exacerbating this or exaggerating this when I say I probably had a stomach ache in some form for a good 10 years and never really checked it out. Had no inclination to see if something was really wrong. And when I went this particular time to the doctor on the way out of town, I stopped by a urgent care clinic and just said, listen, I'm having a really bad stomach ache. I think I just need some Pepcid. And they said, yeah, you're probably right. It might be irritable bowel syndrome. I wasn't asked about any of my symptoms. I wasn't asked really much of anything. They gave me a blood test for H. pylori, which is it's like a little stomach bug kind of. Sent me home with some Pepcid, or sent me packing. I was getting on a plane to go visit my daughter in New Mexico. And then I wasn't getting better. I was really sick. Like for a whole weekend, I just felt like I was dying. I can't even explain it any other way. I was on a plane. I was running a fever, and I was just trying to power through because it was my daughter's birthday. And that's why I was flying back to New Mexico, was to see her, surprise her. So I had all these other things on my agenda. But by the time I got through that weekend and got back, I just looked horrible. And my teaching assistant, I was a teacher at the time, and she said, you look really bad. And I said, I'm okay. And she said, well, did you go to the doctor? And I said, I did, but they said I'm fine. And long and the short of it is, I went back to that same doctor. This time she did ask a few more questions. She said, it's not H. pylori, might be an ulcer. So she ordered a scan. And I did not go get the scan. I am ashamed and embarrassed to say that I didn't go get the scan. And this is one of the things I want to talk about tonight is African Americans are diagnosed more frequently, higher incidence of pancreatic cancer than any other racial group. And we die more frequently. We often are found with the disease in late stage, which adds to the not only later diagnosis, but the higher mortality rate. And it's not because we're genetically, biologically different or at risk any more than the next person. Some of it is culture and some of it is behavior. And I will say, I succumbed to that very thing. I didn't go get a scan because I was busy. I had other things going on. I had to work. I had to do whatever I thought I had to do. And I didn't go get a scan. Fortunately, that doctor was very astute and she advocated for me. And she called me the next morning and she said, I noticed you didn't go get your scan. It's really important that you get a scan. I don't know what's wrong. I think it's an ulcer, but I would like you to get a scan and I would like you to come to my office this morning and get it. When I went in that morning, the very first thing that I noticed was from just the day before, I had lost a good 4 pounds.
Wow.
As I was on the scan machine, they had a little weigh, like a scale on there. And when I looked up, asked the tech, I said, what's that number? And he said, that's your weight. I said, oh, that's impossible. I got weighed last night, like at 5:30 when I was at the doctor and I weighed this. I said, that's like 4, maybe even 5 pounds less. I said, that's impossible. And he said, no, you're fine. Maybe you just haven't eaten breakfast, probably water weight. It's not a big deal. And I believed it. She called me within an hour and she said, Teona, I don't even know how to tell you this. It's not an ulcer. I would never do this over the phone, but it's critical that you get to a doctor, a specialist right now. She said, there is a mass. It's covering your pancreas. It's roughly 7 centimeters, and that's big. And she said, and you're going to need to see somebody. And I said, well, gee, this is weird. What could it be? And she said, Teona, this could be pancreatic cancer. And it took me a few minutes to try to figure out what and where is the pancreas. And I didn't even put it together. It took me a few minutes. And needless to say, that was April 1st. And that started about a 10, 11-day whirlwind of tests and seeing doctors. The first doctor that I went to that same day, a specialist, an oncologist, he looked at the scan and he said, oh, Ms. Ducre, I don't think that this is cancer. How old are you? And I said, 41. He said, are you a smoker? I said, no, I'm not. He said, do you have a family history of pancreatic cancer? And I said, no. And he said, probably not pancreatic cancer, probably just a water-based cyst. Go home, enjoy your spring break, come back in a couple of weeks. We'll take a look at it again. But you're fine. I would not worry about this. And I will tell you, there are a few things that saved my life. One, my mother, when I called her, I said, hey, everything's fine. She said, I don't trust that. And I don't believe that. And even if it is just a cyst, you feel terrible, you look terrible, you're losing weight. And there's a reason all these things are happening. So at the very minimal, you can't continue to feel bad. Find another doctor. And at that point, we started, as a family, I started looking for another doctor. I called PanCan, who is a national organization that works with pancreatic cancer patients in a number of different capacities, but they gave me a few referrals, or not necessarily referrals, but they said, these are doctors in your area that deal with pancreatic cancer. I called probably all 5 specialists that were in the Atlanta metro area. And the very last provider at Winship Emory said, I will see you. If you bring in your scan, I will see you. And so I picked up the scan from the other doctor, drove it out to him, and he took one look at it. And he said, listen, I do this all the time. I see pancreatic cancer patients and, patients with GI cancers all the time. He said, I think this is a solid tumor. And I do think that it is cancer. And he said, you're young. And he said, that's going to work on our side. And I just remember sitting in the office. It was exactly a week later. It was the following Friday. And I just thought, what is happening right now? He said, do you have children? I said, yes, I have 2, a daughter that's 13 and a son that's 15. And he said, if I'm wrong, he said, well, he's actually a Jewish doctor. And he said, if I'm wrong, I'll take you out for a drink. And I don't even drink. And he said, but I don't think I'm wrong. And I would like an opportunity to save your life or at least prolong your life. So that's one of the other things is you have to have a medical provider who is willing to be an advocate for you.
Yes.
Needless to say, again, that started a trajectory of about a year-long process of treatment. I was not eligible for surgery. The tumor was much too big. I had a very compassionate and honest provider who said, we don't believe that you'll make it through surgery, and we want to try to shrink the tumor before we operate. And in 2016, the method of trying to do chemo before surgery was newer. It wasn't a clinical trial anymore, but it was definitely not something that was standard of care. And he said, we want to try it. Are you willing to try it? Initially, I said no, because I didn't want chemotherapy. But again, my mother, like moms, she goes, yeah, no, you're doing it. This isn't a discussion. You are going to go in and you are going to get chemo, and we're going to do whatever we need to do. So I proceeded in to get a port put in. I had another series of tests to see if it had spread. For some of those that might be wondering, it was a stage 3B diagnosis, which for pancreatic cancer essentially means the tumor was localized, thankfully, just to my pancreas and only spread to the lymph nodes by then. So it had not completely metastasized to the surrounding major organs. So that was another thing that worked in my favor. Although it had progressed, it wasn't in advanced stages yet. So that really helped and actually gave my medical team time to come up with a solution to put me through roughly 6 months of chemo. I did a treatment at the time that was standard of care called FOLFIRINOX. It's still used today. There are a few other therapies, but at the time that was platinum-based chemo, which basically means it was as aggressive as the cancer itself. And chemo was not fun, to say the least.
Mhm.
That was not fun, but I survived chemo. I went in, I had surgery. There were very few complications during surgery, thankfully, because the tumor had shrunk so much. I believe it had gone from 7 centimeters to roughly just over 2, maybe 3. Wow. So they were able to very successfully remove the tumor, along with my spleen, the lymph nodes that had been impacted. And then I did about 5 more months of chemo after that, an oral chemotherapy, and then one that was kind of being tested at the time that is now also, I believe, standard of care called Gemzar Abraxane, along with the chemo called Xeloda. And for people that might be watching, I mean, I'll send you all of this, Karen. You can post it so that people can have access to these resources.
Thank you.
Thank you.
9 years ago. At the time, incidentally, I'll say when I hate the question, how long do I have? But I did ask. I said, so what are we thinking? And my doctor said, if all goes well, if we're able to shrink the tumor, if we're able to get you to surgery, if you can tolerate the chemo, if you can tolerate surgery, 21 months. And I was 41 at the time. And I remember counting and looking at a calendar, trying to figure out exactly how long 21 months was and what was going to happen in the next 21 months that I really wanted to be around for. My son was a sophomore. 21 months was just shy of graduation for him. My daughter was in 8th grade. That was not even going to really get me through halfway of her high school career. And I felt that was unacceptable. And through many different things that aligned, I am here today, and I'm grateful. The applause are for, I had a lot of things that worked in my favor.
Yeah.
And I will say that one of those things was having a medical team that was
Yes.
knowledgeable,
Yeah. Mhm.
Yes.
a medical team that advocated for me, a medical team that was comprehensive and included things like a social worker and a nutritionist, in addition to a surgical oncologist who was brilliant or is brilliant. He is still practicing. A medical oncologist who understood solid tumors and what needed to be done. And they were willing to save my life because they thought my life was valuable enough. I am a physician recruiter, and I wish I could say every doctor has that level of compassion, care, empathy, knowledge, and that is not the case. And I have unfortunately heard in way too many instances. I've been doing this for a little while now where I advocate and I meet with patients at all different levels, and the number of times that I hear a patient say, in particular with pancreatic cancer, my doctor told me to go home and get my affairs in order. It is very frequent. And I don't think that's necessarily the medical industry in general. I think that unfortunately, because the statistics, and I do want to talk a little bit about statistics, have been so dire in the past. When I was just for a little bit of indicator in terms of pancreatic cancer, right now about 66,000 people get diagnosed a year in the United States with pancreatic cancer.
Wow.
That's not a big number of people, actually. It's actually a fairly small number of people compared to some of the bigger cancers like lung and breast and colorectal. So 66,000 is not a lot. But here's the catch. Of the 66,000, roughly 13% will survive for 5 years. The 5-year survival rate is 13%. That has almost doubled. When I was diagnosed in 2016, the 5-year survival rate had just moved from 5% to 7%. That is a minuscule number of people when you think about it. And that is a very scary statistic that I tell people if they do get a pancreatic cancer diagnosis, stay off the internet, get the information that you need to get a great medical team to help through this. Social workers, all of those types of things. Know your resources. I bring up the statistics here in this platform, not necessarily to scare anybody, but it is because I want people to understand that this is not a diagnosis to play around with.
Right.
Yeah, so true.
Do not be like me and, ignore the advice of the doctor and don't go get a scan. Take it very seriously, but also know that there are people that survive this disease for many, many, many years. Long-term survival is possible. I'm kind of like in the, sophomore level class of survivorship. I'm at 9 years almost. But when I was looking for survivors, when I was diagnosed, I had the very good fortune to meet numerous survivors. And since then, I have met even more. Every time I go to an event, back in 2016, there would maybe be 10 or 15 people there, and we were scrambling to find that number of survivors. I went to an event back in August in Milwaukee, and there were well over 100 survivors at that event.
Oh, nice. Nice.
That's something to cheer about.
Yeah.
Yes.
People newly diagnosed, people like Howard Young, 22-year survivor from Atlanta, and Kay Kays, a 30-year survivor. She is actually the longest survivor in the country.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
That's amazing.
Those are things to clap for because we're really, I believe, on the precipice of tackling this disease. And it's coming from advocating, awareness, more research, more funding. All of those things are critical to beating this disease and taking this from the third deadliest cancer to maybe a cancer that we don't even hear about anymore because there's early detection, because there's therapies. All of those things are well within our reach and possible.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
Wow. Well, we are so grateful that you said you're in 9 years now.
I'm at 9, almost 9. It'll be 9 this coming year, 2025. So I'm coming up on that 9-year point.
Thank you for sharing that and explaining to us some of the things that are so important, like having a second opinion, having a great provider who can advocate for you and you advocate for yourself. Your mom, thank thanks to moms who, I mean, give us that nudge to move us in the right direction, right?
Right. Absolutely. And again, I cannot uh, emphasize enough the power in platforms like this. I
Thank
am
you.
grateful that there are people who are interested enough in the disease. When I got diagnosed, people weren't very interested because so many people were not surviving the disease.
Right.
So there wasn't a lot of interest. People ask me all the time, what are the things that a pancreatic cancer patient needs, or just a cancer patient in general? At the conference that I went to, where I said there was over 100 survivors there, a social worker mentioned the three things that every cancer patient needs: community,
Mm-hmm.
control, and hope. Without these three things, cancer patients are less likely to survive their diagnosis. I think community, and I was fortunate to have all of those. So I said on the show the other night, I'm big on community. I am so big on community because I know the power of having a community of people cheering for you, um, people that are helping and assisting, whether it can be bringing meals, taking kids
Right.
to places, coming, just picking you up to try to brighten your day a little bit, talking to you, joking with you. All of those
Right.
things are crucial. And I actually had seen somebody that was a pancreatic cancer, somebody that had been diagnosed about the same time I did, who unfortunately succumbed to the disease. And I do remember when I talked to their family, the family did not live nearby, unfortunately. And they said one of the things they felt was that their dad didn't really have community. He was alone doing this. I was anything but alone. I had an entire football team. My son played football. He was in high school. Shout out to Centennial High School Knights, the class of 2019, because everybody on that team, including my, at the time, 15-year-old son, Grant, who was not only my biggest cheerleader, but my caregiver, who was with me day in and day out through this process.
Um,
Um, Along with many other people who came together to support not just me, but my family, my children, even my parents had support through their church friends and their neighbors and things like that. Control is important. Having control, one of the aspects of cancer, I think, is that you can feel like you've completely lost control of everything in your life. You feel like your body has betrayed you. Karen, you mentioned checking your stool and things like that. Pancreatic cancer completely throws your body out of whack in every sense of the word. I have never talked about poop so much in my life. Still, all these years later, I'm still talking about it. But your body is responding to something that is not supposed to be there.
right.
It it can literally feel like your body has betrayed you in every way possible. It doesn't do the things that you want it to do or
Mm-hmm.
could do sometimes. So having control over small things in your life, whether it's, I had a mandatory no talk about cancer day where I would not talk about it. No one could ask me about it. People knew not to call me and ask me because I needed to have a tiny little place in my life.
Right.
Cancer had not taken over, because cancer takes over your entire being, takes over your body, your mental space, everything changes. And it stays that way for the entirety of the diagnosis. And I think in many cases throughout the journey as well. So having control over how I spent my time when I wasn't in chemo, um, having control over when I cut my hair. That is a tip for anybody that is on the show listening who may have a cancer diagnosis or know somebody with cancer. Um, a friend of mine told me, she said, cut your hair before it falls out, because it is traumatic for
Mm-hmm.
anybody, especially as a woman. And I had a lot more hair back then than I have now. It's grown back, thankfully, but I shaved my hair so that I did not have to go through uh, sensation of seeing it just on my pillow one morning when I woke up, because that can be pretty brutal. So those things control. and hope. The last piece of that, shows like this give people hope. Seeing other survivors.
Right.
I saw several survivors right off the bat, and it was amazing. They're still part of my personal friend group today. We've kind of grown up through cancer together, and they're ahead of me. I've vowed that I am going to catch up with Howard Young, who's 22 years, and KK's at 30. I've got my running shoes on, trying to catch them.
Wow.
So yeah.
When you thank you for explaining that. I would just like you to share about the mindset. And then I know in one of your interviews you spoke about the nurse who helped you through when you were receiving treatment, and what she told you, what can help you to find a level of strength after having treatment. And also talk about the mindset when you said in one of your interviews you spoke about you write, but is it using your lipstick on your mirror to give you the level of confidence and remind yourself who you are? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So nurses, again, shout out to all the nurses, because the nurses, even more so than the doctors, I think, can make a patient's experience incredible. My nurse, her name was Joy, or is Joy, and it was the perfect name for her, because every time I
True.
went on Mondays was my chemo day. We called them game days because I was very adverse to chemo. So I needed to psychologically have some other kind of thing. And I love sports. My son would play sports. I love sports. So we had game days instead of chemo days. But Joy made every Monday game day um, as joyful as it possibly could be. She made me laugh. She made me smile. If I felt like crying, she would sit there and cry with me. She brought me ice chips. She helped me roll around with my little IV bag, help me go to the bathroom, all of those things. She was absolutely incredible. She did get diagnosed, oddly, with breast cancer as well during the time that I had cancer. So then we kind of became, we were like partners in arms on this. We were sharing our war stories about, what it is to have cancer. And I am proud and thrilled to say that she also got through her cancer diagnosis, and I saw her just a few years ago when I had to have a infusion one day, and she was there, and she's well and she's healthy. So that's Joy.
Very good.
And then you also asked me about affirmations. So other things that cancer patients need, we talked about the three things being hope and control and community. Other things I think that cancer patients need are access to healthcare resources, a medical team that advocates for you and is knowledgeable, but then you also need ways to protect your mental space. And I
Mm-hmm.
found that affirmations was my best friend, and probably the best tool that I had in my toolbox. And I have to say, I don't remember where I got this from. I saw it in a movie, and I'm trying to remember what movie it was, but the girl would write in lipstick things to herself, like little notes to herself on her mirror. And I ended up taking that, and from the very first day, right before, so the day that I got diagnosed, I took my lipstick, some red lipstick, and I had a huge vanity mirror in my bedroom, and I wrote on it, I am a survivor. And then underneath it, I wrote live. And part of that initial affirmation came from my auntie, who is also a cancer survivor. She's a very good friend of my mother's. And she said, "Hey, baby," she said, "you got to decide right now that you want to live and that you want to beat this." And then that same afternoon, ran into a woman on the elevator. I was going somewhere, and she said, "Hey, are you a cancer survivor?" Because it was like an event, right? I started advocating almost since the day I got diagnosed. So I was at an event at American Cancer Society, and the woman said, "Are you a cancer survivor?" And I said, "Oh, no, not yet. I just got diagnosed a couple of days ago." And she said, "Oh, honey, you're a survivor every day that you wake up and beat this disease from day one." And I took that, and I say that to people. Everybody that I meet that gets diagnosed, I say that to them, because it is easy to think that you have not survived this until some definitive point in time comes. And that's not true. You are surviving every day. The goal, though, is not to just survive, it is to thrive.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where the affirmations come in at. People ask me all the time, what was the magic, the little magic bullet? How did you survive? How did you beat this? This is like one of the worst cancers. When I used to tell people initially, the look of horror that would be on their face, I would say, oh, I have pancreatic cancer. And it was like, I felt like they died right in front of me, thinking I was going to die right in front of them. They were like, oh, no. But I think I made a very definitive choice, and it's not easy. I don't ever want to minimize an aggressive disease that's very serious and is complicated and requires a lot of things to survive it, to just do this. I will say affirmations gave me the frame of mind that I needed to get up and go to chemo,
Mm-hmm.
because chemo sucks. There's no nice way to say that. It sucks. It's terrible. So when my hair was starting to thin and I knew I was going to have to shave it, and I wanted to have my hair, and I was like, oh, I'm going to be bald. I hope my head isn't ugly underneath. Who knows what it looks like underneath there? Those types of things can really tear somebody down, aside from the very real fact that you have already been told that you're not going to live for very long. You've got 21 months, you've got 10 months, you've got 36 months, however long it is. Those things will emotionally mess with you. And I do believe that you beat cancer first in your mind. You beat it here. And what we tell our brains, the information that we take in, what we process, it filters throughout the rest of our body. I would say things like, I would not only write affirmations on my mirror, every chemo series, the first thing I did when I got up in the morning, I'd listen to a set of affirmations, I did some meditation, and then I wrote something to myself specific to that session, wherever I was at. I think I did 12 altogether over 6 months. So at the end, I had like 12. And by the very last chemo session, I actually have a picture of it still, when I was looking at myself in the mirror, and by this time I had lost like 45 pounds, I had no hair. Everything was, I didn't even look like myself anymore. But what I remember was looking at myself through a series of affirmations that I had written about what I wanted. I wanted to be strong. I wanted to see my children graduate, not just from high school, from college. And I looked at myself through the reflection of positive affirmations. And that took me all the way through surgery in November of 2016. So I started in April and November of 2016. And I think that exercise not only helped me then, but it's one that I still use today. I don't have it written on my mirror anymore. It got difficult and it got messy. But I still get up every day and I look at myself in the mirror and I say an affirmation to ensure not just my well-being, but how I want to move through this world. I'm many things, a mom, a daughter, a recruiter, in addition to a cancer survivor. And all of those different things, and this is for anybody, we play a lot of different roles. And if no one else is affirming you, you got to affirm yourself. Your
Exactly.
brain is listening to you all day long. Even if it's not listening to anybody else, it's listening to you and what you're saying.
Mhm.
And it's critical that if we want our bodies to function well and as a whole system, and you guys both know this, as holistic health coaches, it is going to start with what we tell it here every day.
Wow.
Wow.
It's truly amazing to sit and listen to you, Teona, how you really explain, in depth about pancreatic cancer and the foundation that you chose to stand on to lift yourself up back. And so you can sit here this evening and tell us all about your journey. You know, we we tend to forget that we have the power within ourselves to make that healing process effective. Once we have the right tools, like affirmations, you said, you have to have the right mindset
Right.
to pull you through these difficult times. You even talk about community, you talk about hope, you talk about control. You know, it's giving us something that we can hold on to in whatever situation we may be going through at this point in time. It may not be pancreatic cancer, it may be another form of cancer, but you giving us hope that we can able to sustain ourselves with tools and uplift ourselves in these moments when we feel low, when we feel as though we can't go any further. You give us real hope this evening, and you help us to understand that awareness is so important. When we are aware of what's happening in our lives, we are able to pause, acknowledge, reflect, and adjust to what's happening at the present moment.
Yeah.
Because we all will go through something sometime in our life. But what are we doing at that present moment is essential to move us forward. It's like to move the clock to another minute. Whatever we chose to do in that moment, it is essential for our lives and our well-being. And the thing is that we not just gonna survive, as you said, is survive to thrive. Because you don't just want to survive and you're really not living the life you want to live. You want to thrive. You want to be able to get up and do the things that you love to do each and every single day. And once we have that community around us, it gives us that support that we need. Because when you look around and then you see people, they're offering to come pick your son up, people are offering to drive you for chemo. It gives you that sense of essence that, you know what, I can live because there are people who want to see me live. And that is what we need to do if we have a loved one or a friend or anyone that we see that is going through something in their life. We need to be there for that person. We need to give them the hope when they see no hope for their life. We can stand up for them and say, you know what? I know you can do this. I believe in you. And I know you can pull through this. And once you can hear those words from an individual, it can lift that person up from that dark spot and bring them up to a light when they don't even see the light in their own lives. My question to you is, during it no if someone have pancreatic cancer, is trauma related to something like that? Is it nutrition related to pancreatic cancer? Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Sure. And that's a great question. I want to acknowledge what you said about lifting people up. It doesn't have to be pancreatic cancer. It can be anything. People go through things day in and day out that are not cancer diagnoses, but they are struggling, they are not well, and they need help. And I have said this before. If I received the level of community care, in addition to gave myself the level of self-care that I did when I had cancer, I'd be healthy 365 days a year. And I think that's the truth
Mhm.
for anybody. If we cared for people the way we care for them when they have some major terminal illness, maybe people wouldn't get terminal illness. Because the to answer your question, or to kind of shift into what you said about what causes pancreatic cancer, unfortunately, we don't know. There are things that are definitely uh, connectors. Um, I do think that right now, one of the biggest findings is late onset diabetes. And we were talking about a little bit about this before the show, that getting a diabetes diagnosis later in life, researchers are making the link. They don't know whether it causes pancreatic cancer, if it's a symptom. They don't know, is it the chicken or the egg? Which came first? Was it the diabetes or, but it has provided a very specific demographic of people who can be tested, that researchers and scientists can really focus on. So that's actually been one of the things in the forefront right now, in terms of trying to establish early detection for this disease. There are several things that make this disease very difficult. One is, of course, that there are very few symptoms, and the symptoms are incredibly subtle. You mentioned some of them earlier: changes in stool, significant weight loss. Even when people are trying to lose weight, you should not be losing 7 to 10 pounds in 1 week, even if you're going to the gym every day. That's not healthy. That's not safe. Something is going on. If you're not trying to lose weight and you're suddenly losing weight without any explanation, but you're eating and you're doing those things, that's another thing. Go to your provider to find out, why am I losing weight? Most of the time, something is wrong. Significant weight loss, sudden and significant weight loss. You mentioned a little bit, jaundice is one of the major symptoms, and it is the one symptom that I did not have. I had weight loss, I had changes in stool, and then in addition to that, lower back pain. That is probably one of the most marked, other than jaundice, is a very specific pain that I can only describe. It's acute. It's acute pain, and that it's sharp, and it is pressure on the back. So those are the symptoms. Because those symptoms could be just about anything, and they typically don't happen until late stage. Most of the time, by the people start experiencing symptoms, the disease has already unfortunately progressed. So that makes early detection very difficult. The location of the pancreas, it's deep in the cavity of just behind the stomach. So it's very difficult to see, even on a scan. That makes it difficult to diagnose. So the combination of no symptoms or very significant symptoms and the location make it harder to diagnose. So early detection then becomes a challenge. And then just kind of figuring out what's causing it. Smoking definitely increases incidence. People who are smokers. Diabetes definitely increases incidence. So if there's other health concerns, that can make a pancreatic cancer diagnosis more probable. However, there isn't anything that doctors and scientists and some of the best researchers in the world are working on pancreatic cancer today, as we speak, right now, around the clock. Doctors like Dr. Von Hoff at TGen at City of Hope in Phoenix, Dr. Doug Evans in Milwaukee, Wisconsin at the Medical College of Wisconsin, Dr. Susan Tsai, also at MCW, Dr. Andrew Page right here in Atlanta. All of these are amazing doctors that are working on this. And unfortunately, one of the things that has to happen to push more research dollars is funding. Funding has to happen, government funding, private sources of funding, all of those things push research. So until we really know what's causing it, it's going to be really difficult for us to cut this off where it starts. The only one thing that is a predictor, and it was the one that I had, is being African American. And again, not for anything biological. It is just simply at this point, what PanCan reports is that cultural things, behavioral things that we do, not going to the doctor, not having access to resources and doctors and providers. I lived in Southwest Atlanta for a period of time. There's not a lot of healthcare facilities in Southwest Atlanta. People that live in rural communities, all of those things become not only challenges, but can be indicators of having pancreatic cancer. I'll tell a very quick story about a gentleman that unfortunately I didn't know, and his name is Eric. He was young, thriving, passionate, brilliant, talented. He and his wife were living in Amsterdam at the time. And one very unfortunate day, he wasn't feeling well. He had pancreatic cancer diagnosis. They did not see it coming. And I happen to know his wife, Deborah, and he passed from the disease 6 months from the day that he was
My
diagnosed.
God.
It was,
Wow.
and again, young. And his wife now, Deborah, who's a dear friend of mine, through a nonprofit organization that she and her husband actually started, the big thing that they promote is awareness and advocacy specifically for early detection.
Mhm.
The name of the organization is VG Jazz, because the hope is finding the tools that are needed to be able to diagnose people long before those symptoms hit, and then
Right.
dealing with a stage 4 diagnosis. I will say that I have several friends who are stage 4 pancreatic cancer survivors, and they are long-term survivors. So even with the worst case scenario,
Yeah.
we are fortunate to have medical advancement that is allowing people to live with, survive, and even thrive
Mhm.
past stage 4 diagnosis. We just want to see more of it. And that's what November awareness is about. Telling people these are the symptoms. There's several organizations that you can go to get information. Pancan.org, www.pancan.org is probably the biggest and most known. But there are other organizations, and again, Karen and Joan, I'll send them to you. Sina Magowitz Foundation, Purple Pansies of Atlanta, the Lustgarten Foundation. There are multiple organizations that have the information and are making progress. And I want to emphasize that progress is being made. We're not there, but progress is being made.
Wow. You've served us so well. You've enlightened us so profoundly. I just want to talk quick thing about what do you do to relax?
What do I do to relax? That's a great question. I love to travel. I travel for my job, and I just really like to travel. It's a gift to be able to travel. And I spend time when I can with my children. They're both away now. They don't live here anymore. Other things that I do, I walk a lot. I live in a very walkable part of Atlanta.
Yeah.
I had the very good fortune to go to Europe not long after I was diagnosed, about a year later, and I fell in love with walking and living in the city. And I moved into the city. So I live in Atlanta proper, in a very walkable community. So if I'm having a stressful day, I work remote, and physician recruiting is fun, but it's stressful.
Yeah.
I can get up in the middle of the day and go walk around my neighborhood. I can walk through the city. I write all the time. I started writing again more recently, but journaling and writing and meditation and yoga, those things, I believe that I'm not a big gym person. I do go to the gym, but movement, keeping our bodies moving,
Mm-hmm.
keeping our brains positive, as hard as that is. And I say that as somebody who has struggled for more than half of my adult life with depression. Keeping ourselves motivated, and again, affirming ourselves, those things help us not only to relax, but help us to stay healthy and thrive.
Is there a book coming?
Everybody always asks me that. It's so funny. I have been allegedly writing this book for years about my cancer journey. And to answer your question, I am really going to try to make that happen. Technically, it's already written. It's just been how do you find the publisher and all the people? And I know you've written books, so
Yes, we
like,
have. We have.
how do you do that part? I'm a journalism major, and I don't know how to do that part. But
We'll, sh- we,
We'll talk
we'll
to you
share
about that.
someone about that. Yes, yes.
We'll
okay.
talk to you about that.
I
Mm-hmm.
do hope so, because I want to be able, like you, empower people.
Yes.
The more we know, the better we do.
Yes.
And I think we can all thrive together through any horrible thing that hits us.
Yes.
We can survive it and be better on the other side of it.
Wow. This is truly amazing, that you came to this platform this evening and you was able to deliver such a powerful message to the community. You know, deliver such a powerful message to the community, and it's to give us all hope that whatever we are going through at this point in time,
Mm-hmm.
there is hope. Surround ourselves with the right kind of people who is going to support us on our journey, lift us up on the days that we are down and feeling as though we really can't do it anymore. We have that supporting team to rally around us and give us that hope that we need to get up and put one foot forward in front of the other. Thank you so much for showing up this evening and just giving us such an enriching conversation.
Thank
It's
you.
worth it. And if anyone joined this podcast late, you need to watch this replay because there is a lot of tips that you can take away to help yourself, or if you know anyone, share this podcast with them because it's all about awareness and helping an individual to understand more about themselves. And thank you so much for all the beautiful comments. The persons on IG, thank you for joining us. And don't forget to subscribe to Soul Light and Body that you will never miss none of these episodes. Joan, take us out.
Wow. 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 What a wonderful evening. The time went by so quickly. I know we're going to be doing part two, but congratulations. We
Thank
thank
you.
you for the level of strength, your community that supported you on your journey, and your mindset, your confidence, everything that you've used very intentionally to lift yourself up, to support you as a person, along with your community that rally around you. And I like the part that you mentioned that after every therapy, after every treatment, you wrote, that was very intentional, what you wanted to look like. Because even you were told something specific, but you know, with a level of mindset and a level of confidence in moving with intentionality, you know that what you want the outcome to be. And here you are sitting, talking to us, enlightening us, and help us to understand these are the things you can do, or you can help someone to advise their friend. Don't just settle for first opinion. There are other things that you can do so that you can feel confident within yourself, and also having the right kind of medical team that supports you, that would advocate for you, and can be in an honest way to tell you, we can shrink this first before we move to surgery, and give you the level of tools and supported you on your journey. And you continue to do that. And that is why we are so pleased and so grateful this evening for you sitting with us,
Yeah.
taking your time. We value your time and providing us with such a level of beauty and level of knowledge that everyone who is listening on live and would catch it on the replay will learn and expand their toolkit and their toolbox and their container to understand, no, I can do this. I can thrive, and I can move forward in whatever I might be going through at a point in time. Because it's not only what the situation that you go through, it's how do you, as we spoke the other night, how do you bounce back from that? How do you bounce back from that level of setback and emerge and still stay strong, still determined, still have the courage, still being tenacious to live life and want to be your best and be your all? So we just want to thank you. You're special and you are amazing and very unique and just worthy. So we're grateful. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Tiana.
You. Thank you. Thank you. I am truly grateful for you guys. You guys have been amazing, and thank you for what you do.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
And all the people on Facebook and YouTube, thank you for
Yes.
joining us this evening. Thank you for
We
all
love
your
Absolutely.
you all.
support. Love you all. Bye bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.